welcome to the second day of what is becoming our annual Speak Out event. We have a cozy group here today. Many of our speakers, as you all know, gave their talk last time, and apparently they collapsed in exhaustion and couldn't make it today. But I'm sure they're on their way, and they'll be here soon. But we do have a nice lineup today of 4 speakers who I'm sure will inspire us greatly, and with the power of the microphone and the engagement of the audience, I'm sure we all will be moved and informed, inspired, and so on. So a couple technical notes. Speak into the microphone. Don't be afraid. It feels good. Other technical notes. I guess that's it. So we will begin. Oh, there we go. I knew I was stalling. I was like, Christian's on his way. I was about to tell a joke. It's like, Christian's on his way. All right. No, you could leave it ajar. People will come in, and that's cool. All right. So, real quick, even though our group is cozy and small, it seems, in this room right now, I do want to remind you all that this is being recorded, as our speakers last time were also recorded, so the audience is much larger than the room before us right now, right? The video will be archived in the library. It'll be searchable by others who will be doing research on issues that you all have researched this semester, and it will be, of course, made available on the library's YouTube channel. And you know what happens when things go out on YouTube? They go viral. Right? They go viral. So like millions of people potentially will see what you have to say today. So no pressure, but I'm very excited. So without further ado, you know why we're here. Let's bring up our first speaker, Muhammad.
Yay! All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Muhammad Shakir, and I would like to talk with you all today about animal welfare and how we can help and make a difference. So I would like to begin by telling you all a story of my first pet. And so when I was about 9 years old, I woke up one morning, and when I was 9 years old, I woke up one morning, and I came to my family room, and I saw that there's this box sitting there. And I had no idea what it was at the time until I asked my mom. And she told me it was a cat. And I had so many thoughts at the time. I was like, thinking, did we really just get a cat? And, I thought, what would we name her? What she looked like? Was she a kitten, or if she was old? And so we opened the box and tried to let her out. And she was a little scared at the time, like I'm sure anyone would be in new surroundings or, a place they don't know. And so we left her alone, and she eventually came out on her own. And that's when I saw her for the first time. She was an all-gray cat with white fur on her belly. And as soon as I saw her, I knew we would name her Shadow. And she wasn't a kitten, but she was pretty. She wasn't that old either. The shelter told us from where we got her. They told my mom that she was pretty old, to like the point where a lot of people would avoid her and look at kittens over her, because she was kind of old. And so I used to play with her every day up until a couple of years ago. We had to get rid of her and find her a new home. So my mother got sick about a few years ago, and her kidneys have started failing, and they basically don't work anymore. So she has to do dialysis about every day, and because of this, we can't have any animals in the house. So fortunately enough, we were able to find her a new home with my aunt in Ohio, and if this was an option, she would probably end up in a shelter, and considering how old she was now, she'd probably would never be adopted or probably end up being euthanized. So those of you who own a pet, I'm sure you can appreciate how hard it would be to have to get rid of a pet that you've owned so long to the point where they practically become a family member. And I'm sure you all know that loving home is a million times better than a shelter where some animals get mistreated or some get more attention than others. And usually older pets are there longer than younger pets. And because when you go to the shelter, you're not looking for some old pet that might die the next day, after you adopt them. You're looking for a young pet that will probably be there with you your whole life. And according to the ASPCA, about 6.5 million animals enter the shelter every year, and about 3.2 million are adopted. And out of these other half that aren't adopted, about 1.5 are euthanized every year. So that's about half of the animals that aren't adopted are put down. So now I know adopting an animal might be a lot to ask of some of you, but still, I would like to ask you all to go to a shelter like the Animal Welfare League and look at the older animals they have. And because more often than not, these animals are already trained, and they are less work than a younger animal would be. So I want you all to think about how these animals, how they feel when in the shelter, because they might have been there twice as long as a young animal might have been. And just if you can't adopt, I would suggest to just go and volunteer, because these animals, all they're looking for is really just some kind of connection. Like 20 minutes of your time to take an animal out and give them a walk would be more than enough. So please, if you have the time and space for these animals in your life, give a pet a place they can call home. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Caitlin, and I grew up in a little Chicago suburb called Cicero. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with that. I grew up with a father who was a police officer in Cicero, and a stay-at-home mom and a sister. And life was all pretty normal until one day I was in second grade, and in the middle of class, I got taken out by some other police officers that my dad knew, and they didn't tell me what was going on, and they drove me to the hospital. And me, being like 7 years old, didn't know what was going on, so I was just like crying. I was scared, and I got to the hospital, and I see my mom just bawling her eyes out, filling out some paperwork. The commander was filling out some paperwork, and then I found out that my dad was in surgery because he actually got attacked by a pit bull in one of his police, a house arrest, and he was in serious condition. They thought he was going to lose his leg. He needed 47 stitches, and to this day he still walks funny in that leg. And so ever since then, I've always had this fear of pit bulls, because that's what my family made me think, that they were bad animals. They're all aggressive, they're all just brutal. So my dad eventually healed, but he still walks weird. He still has a huge scar. He almost lost his leg because it's right on his kneecap. And so I was always scared of pit bulls. I was always made to believe that they're bad. I hated them. Until one day in high school, I had to do 40 volunteer hours, and so I chose to do some of that at a local animal shelter by my house called TLC. And when I got there, I was actually really scared, because I was just a freshman in high school, and they were all pit bulls. I didn't realize why, because, and eventually, after doing a few hours there, I grew a bond with this one pit bull named Chocolate, and he was 2 years old, and he was there actually since he was a baby. So, and one day I went home and I told my dad that he should come because he was scared of pit bulls, but he never met a good one, you know. So he came with me, and he liked him. He liked chocolate. And then eventually, as soon as I kept doing my hours and hours, I went back one day and chocolate wasn't there. And I asked the workers what happened, and they told me he was euthanized. And that was just really sad because he was just a little puppy. And then after doing my research, I learned that pit bulls make up the largest percent in animal shelters. And one of the main reasons is because due to overpopulation, pit bulls make up, their litters are one of the biggest dog litters. They could have anywhere between 6 to 15 puppies each litter. And what's a person going to do with all those puppies, you know? And another reason is because they have this stigma against them, which is what I used to believe till I saw it differently. And there's a fact, according to this paper, done by the American Temperament Test Society, that pit bulls are just about the nicest dogs there are. They're right behind the Labrador Retriever with an 86.8%. So they're really not that bad. And eventually also, well, in this class, I had to go to Animal Welfare League to do some volunteer work. And literally, like, every dog there was a pit bull. And one day a guy came up to me. I had my little name tag on and everything. I was just volunteering. And he was like an older man. He was like, "Are there any dogs here that aren't pit bulls?" And I was like, "No," but like I showed him this nice pit bull. And he was like, "Oh, no, I don't want a pit bull. I had kids at home." I don't know, yeah. And then that really made me like realize that a lot of people think this, and he wouldn't even want to get a pit bull just because of their stereotype, you know? And actually the workers at Animal Welfare League told me that the most vicious dog there was a Chihuahua. Mohammed actually knows that. He was with me. But, yeah. And pit bulls have this stigma, but they're Americans' dog. They're working dogs. They're herding dogs. They go to hospitals. They're nursing dogs. They could guide people who need help. And even my sister, she just got out of grad school, and she's working at a elementary school. She's a speech pathologist. She works with kids with autism. And every Wednesday, they bring in dogs, and most of them are pit bulls. And the kids read to them to help them with their speech. And it's really helpful. And I would like to say the importance of spaying and neutering your dog, since pit bulls do create like the largest litters of dogs. It's very important to spay and neuter them so they don't end up in shelters, they don't die in shelters. And actually Animal Welfare League does give free spaying and neutering, so that's always nice. So what I'm going to leave with is saying that how you could help is just, if you can, rescue a pit bull. Rescue an older one, a nicer one. If not, then just go to a shelter. You'll see a lot of them. Play with them, give them attention, and just try to spread the word that not all of them are bad, because only 1 in 600 pit bulls will end up finding a loving home. Thank you.
Hi. My name is Amanda, I guess, but I'm more known as Audrey. Well, okay. So, how strong are invisible walls? We don't see them, but we constantly feel them. They're there to keep people out of a free country. I am also restricted by these walls. I'm an international student in this country, so I'm on a student visa, and with that come limitations. Like, obviously I can't vote. I mean, I can't work like anybody else. You know, I can't go out and get a job at Starbucks and earn money because that's illegal. The only way I can earn money is to work at my campus for a limited amount of hours, but that's not going to do much. So I know a lot of international students who get jobs illegally because of this limitation. So obviously it's not working very well. So I've been here 2 years, but I'm still only considered a little more than a visitor in this country, I feel, because of these limitations. And I want to stay in this country. I feel like the government and everybody else, they expect me to, she'll come here for a while, she get her education, then she goes back home. But what if I want to stay here? What about everybody else that wants to stay here? So that's where it becomes difficult, because we have to become a permanent resident, or we can get sponsored for a work visa, but that's pretty difficult. Not a lot of people can get that. And otherwise, for me at least, the easiest thing is to get married to an American, and come on, that's, So I feel like these limited options makes it so hard for immigrants. People are in my position, but also people who come as refugees and who are hearing about with this new president, with all this Muslim ban thing going on, and it's just everything is just becoming more difficult. So that's why I feel like a lot of immigrants choose to do stuff illegally to stay here, or they have to be dragged home. So the chances are that you know at least one immigrant, anybody in here, whether you are one or you know one that is a legal immigrant or here illegally. So the general reason all of us immigrants would come to this country is because we want to live a better life. Whether we're fleeing from a country that is a third world country that's been struck with war, or we just want to make our dreams come true in this most popular country in the world. But just like everybody else here who are regular Americans and citizens in this country, we just want to live the life we most desire. And we feel that America can offer that to us. However, but it's you can and we can all be denied this life we want because of a lack of education, or you don't have the right contacts or networking, or your immigration status is just not right. So I want to talk about this story about a Russian girl that used to go to Moraine. So she was an international student too. And she went to Moraine, she had fun, she really loved being in this country, but then came the time where she was finished at Moraine, and she didn't have enough money to transfer to a 4-year university. So she didn't know what to do. She didn't want to go back home. She was in a relationship with an American man. So that's where she saw her opportunity. Now, she knew that he wasn't just going to propose to her just like that. So she told him that she was on birth control, which was a lie. So she got pregnant. And then his family urged him to marry her. So that's what she had to do in order to stay in this country. And I mean, come on, it's a little bit too much to feel like you have to do that, to be pushed to such extraordinary measures just to hold on to a life that you built here, that you don't have full ownership of, in a way. So, what do we do about this? It's hard to know what to exactly do about this because, we can't really change the laws. It's hard to do, and our current president is not very fond of immigrants. So it's we're lacking sympathy here, a lot of these immigrants. What about all the refugees, the people who come from countries that has war in them and poverty? The countries that our current president wants to ban. He doesn't want them to come into the country just because he thinks they will do awful crimes, but they're just trying to live. Just trying to get away from a horrific life. So, through my service learning at the citizenship class, I got to hear a story that was like this. There was this woman from Iraq, I was helping her out by preparing her questions and interview for her citizenship interview. And she told me that back in Iraq several years ago, when it was plagued with a lot of bad wars back then, and her house, it got bombed, and like some of her family, they died, and she had to flee. She had to try to get back to some kind of resemblance of a life. She had to leave a lot of her family and her old life behind, and she managed to come here, and she's about to become a citizen, hopefully. So she made it, and that's the kind of story I think we all want to hear, and that the opportunity we should be able to give people like this. So then we come back to how you stand up to the wrongful loss and that may or may not happen with the current president. Well, first thing anybody can do is just to listen. Hear the stories from both legal and illegal immigrants, whether from like Syria, Poland, or Germany, or wherever, really. Whether they're young or they're old. Just take a listen and see what they have to say, because you never really know, like, what they had to go through to get where they are now. It's just like, understand why some people who are here legally are doing it for. They're not doing it because, oh yeah, I think I'm cool, or something like that. I mean, they're doing it because maybe they can't go back to their country, or maybe they just really want to stay here, but they don't have any options. So you can also try like signing petitions or engaging in protests, especially the ones that I would say involving the Muslim ban and stuff like that, because that's pretty current right now. And just know that even the smallest action matters a lot. You may think like, what can I do? Like, but you can do a lot. You can hear the immigrants, you can talk to people, you can spread the message, you can engage in protests and stuff like that. Just to make sure that we can live a better life here, like make the hushed voices heard, and like to still allow undocumented students to be able to go to university and colleges, for citizenship classes to still remain, so we can get closer to our goal, and not deny a person because of what country they come from, and just let them own their own life and be able to build what they want to build here. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Alam Yosef. From second grade up to 8th grade, I was bullied by the way I looked, the hijab, and the color of my skin. So I dealt with bullying from children, which was very common. But the type of bullying that was not common, really, was bullying that comes from the teacher versus the students. So as an adult, the teachers would reflect on their behaviors. They would show towards me to their students, so they would do the same when I was in recess or at lunch. So, as adults, I thought they would help me with the children kind of bullying, but I never thought they would actually participate in what the children were actually doing. In our society today, diversity is very not accepted, really. In America, as much as we want it to be and how much we say it is, it's really not. So it came to the point where I would not want to go to school anymore. I tried to avoid the bus. I actually kind of like walked to school. I would miss school. I would go to downtown Chicago. Downtown LaGrange. Downtown LaGrange, and I would just chill in the movie theater, try to be alone for a while for myself, trying to I'm not going to cry. So, just to get my thoughts.
So my experience with bullying was really hard. So when I was participating in community service at Marine Valley, I saw this little girl who was experiencing the same thing I did. I saw myself in that little girl, and I really wanted to help her. And I wanted to tell the teachers that, as much as it's rude to tell them, I really wanted to tell them that what they're doing is wrong, and they should reflect kindness to the students, to show other students that it's not okay to bully, especially when it comes to like the way they look. And call to action is basically just stand up, just speak. If you are a color, speak about your color. Be proud of your color. Show the little girl or the little boy who's being bullied that you are just proud, and they can be proud as well. And they're just not going to look down at themselves. That's it. I'm not going to...
I think I need a moment to compose myself. It's very moving. Thank you, all of you, for sharing your talks. I know we had a short lineup today. Did we miss anybody? Is there anybody we missed? Everybody went, right? I just make sure, like sometimes. Okay, very good. Thank you so very much. Obviously, we do have some time. So if there are comments or questions from anybody in the room, we have time to have that conversation or to make any comments we would like. Is there anybody who would like to say anything? Don't be shy. Awesome.
I just want to say that everyone here is so strong and brave to talk about their stories of their life and their experiences. I appreciate it all. Thank you.
Thank you. Others? Anybody want to say? Oh, okay.
Just to continue what she was saying, these last 2 days, everybody's been presented with decisions and choices, right? So, with all the information that we just got, you have a decision soon you walk out this door. So don't let what each of us said go through one ear and out the other. If you're presented with what she just said, to speak up about whatever the issue is, be yourself. Don't be nervous about it. You're an example for somebody else. You don't know who's watching you. You don't know who is looking up to you. So that's why I try to live my life an example that somebody can be proud of in a way. But each of our different issues, whatever, if it was the pets, if it was homelessness, poverty, do your part. You don't have to, if you don't want to devote your life to it, you can still do whatever the things you got to do, but put yourself in a position to help someone. Everything's not about you all the time. That's one thing I have to constantly remind myself. If you're in a position to help someone, something, a situation, do it. Don't sit back. Don't hold your tongue, because there's so many times where we've done that already, and you see the results of doing nothing, right? So let's see what happens when we all actually do something. And then I do believe whatever the situation, the issue is, things will start working out. So what I'm really, really just trying to say is step up and don't be afraid to do your part.
Thank you, Christian. Others? The conversation can continue. Anybody? If I wait long enough, somebody will want to say something. Maybe? One thing they teach us in teacher school is to, allow it to be quiet, because eventually somebody will say something. It gets a point where it starts to become awkward, though. Are we there yet? No? All right. Well, I guess going once, twice. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, all of you. And truly, I want to echo the remarks of your peers that I've been inspired to hear you all speak, to have the courage that if I'm being honest, I wouldn't have when, I was a student. I wouldn't be able to come up and do that. I asked you guys to do things that I couldn't do, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't ask you to do that, right? I could barely do these things now. So thank you for having the courage to stand up and be authentic. That's something we've been working on with these talks, right? Trying to, know your stuff. You've done the research, but put the notes aside and connect with the people in front of you and speak from your own story, because, that truly is meaningful. And when we can listen to each other's stories, I think that's a big step towards what we're trying to accomplish. And one of the goals of all of the research, the writing, the service learning, the field work you've been doing, the civic skills I'm hoping that you've been developing through this course. The aim has been to affect change. And I think that affecting that change begins by standing up and speaking out and being yourself and listening to others, and kind of bridging the divide that seems to separate so many of us nowadays. So thank you. Thank you all for being here. And I guess we have a short day today. So enjoy a beautiful spring day. Okay. Thank you.